She did everything right. Cut coupons, packed lunch, skipped the little treats. She even reused Ziploc bags and saved every leftover penny in a shoebox. But now, she's 71. And broke. Not because she didn't save. She did. Faithfully. But she saved like a still lake, not like a flowing river. No one told her the truth. That money saved, but never moved, doesn't stay safe. It just stays stuck. Inflation crept in. Emergencies piled up. And the shoebox, that sacred symbol of her frugality, emptied slowly, then all at once. Let me say that again. Some of the most frugal women you know will still retire broke. Because saving isn't a strategy. It's a habit. And habits without direction, they can quietly fail you. This is a story about Annie. And how being smart with money almost left her with nothing. Annie didn't waste money. Not ever. She grew up in a house where lights were turned off as soon as you left the room. Where birthday gifts were handmade and leftovers stretched into soups, stews, and casseroles for days. By the time she was 25, she knew every grocery sale cycle by heart. She packed her lunch until retirement, cut her own hair, wore the same winter coat for 18 years. To her friends, Annie was the frugal queen. To her children, she was a magician, somehow feeding 4 people on what other families spent at Starbucks in a week. She didn't chase labels. She didn't splurge. And she never, ever carried a credit card balance. But here's the thing. Frugal doesn't mean free. And saving, without purpose, isn't protection. It's postponement. Annie did what many of us were taught. Be good. Be careful. Don't waste. But no one taught her how to direct money. Only how to deny herself. So she got good at saying no. No to the vacation. No to the new tires. No to the home repair that could have added value. She saved and saved. But the money sat still. No interest. No growth. Just fear in a different outfit. Annie believed being smart with money meant being small with money. But what she didn't know, what so many of us never learned, is that money doesn't reward safety. It rewards movement. And that quiet habit of hoarding pennies? It didn't make her secure. It made her stuck. Annie didn't just save money. She identified as a saver. It became her comfort, her pride, her protection. She was the woman who didn't need much. The one who could stretch a dollar like magic. The one who'd quietly whisper, "We can't afford that," even when they technically could. And it worked for a while. There was a deep satisfaction in doing more with less. But slowly, without her noticing, the world changed. Prices climbed. Insurance costs doubled. Groceries she used to get for $40 a week were now $85. She told herself it was fine. She just needed to save harder, cut deeper, say no more often. But here's the truth she didn't see. The money she protected, it was shrinking, quietly, constantly. Inflation doesn't knock. It seeps in. A dollar that sat still for 10 years lost a third of its power. And Annie had let her dollars sit still for decades. She passed up chances to invest, said no to low-risk opportunities that could have grown her savings into something strong, because she feared the unknown more than she feared staying stuck. This is the dangerous comfort of smart saving. When frugality becomes a badge of honor, when we build our identity around what we don't spend, we start to believe stillness is safety. But stillness is just still. Money doesn't thrive in hiding. It thrives in motion, in courage, in use. Let me say that again. Frugality without flow, it isn't wisdom, it's stagnation. And by the time Annie realized that, her options were narrower. Her body was older. Her savings couldn't stretch the way they used to. She wasn't lazy. She wasn't careless. She was careful to a fault. And in trying to be smart, she missed the one lesson no one ever taught her. That money doesn't grow in silence. It grows when you plan it. Money needs movement. Money is like blood. It has to move. When it stops circulating, it starts dying. Annie didn't know that. She thought keeping money still meant keeping it safe. But it's the stillness that almost broke her. Have you ever seen a pond that doesn't flow? The water turns murky, heavy. Mosquitoes gather. It becomes a place where things come to rest, but not to thrive. Now think of a river. Moving water cleans itself. It gives life. It goes somewhere. That was the shift Annie needed. Not to save more, but to move differently. At 63, she made the boldest move of her life. She stopped asking, "How can I save this?" and started asking, "What can this do?" She took a class on low-risk investing. She opened a Roth IRA, not because she wanted to be rich, but because she finally understood. Money isn't meant to be hoarded. It's meant to be held, used, grown, and passed on. She started giving small amounts, quietly, to her daughter's business, bought better food for her own health, let go of the guilt she'd carried for 40 years around spending on herself. The freedom wasn't in the amount. It was in the movement. She still packed her lunch, still watched the sales, but now her money had purpose, not just pressure. It wasn't about becoming financially free in the flashy sense. It was about creating flow, intentional spending, modest investing, quiet generosity. And for the first time in her life, Annie didn't feel afraid of running out, because she finally saw herself not just as a saver, but as a steward. If this is starting to feel familiar, maybe consider subscribing. I make videos like this every day, just for people like you, for the people holding it all together, trying to be careful, trying to be good. You don't have to be perfect, just purposeful. Let your money move. Let it breathe. That's where the peace is. From saver to steward. Annie used to think being good with money meant saying no. No to risk. No to pleasure. No to anything uncertain. But saving, she learned, is just the beginning. It's what you do next, how you carry that money, that truly shapes your life. She started to see herself differently, not as a hoarder of dollars, but as a steward of resources. Stewardship felt softer. It wasn't about fear. It was about trust in herself, in her values, in her ability to make decisions that served her future, not just protected her from it. She realized she didn't need to be the cheapest woman in the room to be wise. She needed to be intentional, clear, loving. Even with her money, she began asking better questions. Not, can I afford this? But, does this align with what I care about? Not, how much can I save? But, where will this money grow best? That's the quiet power of stewardship. It doesn't rush. It doesn't hoard. It guides. It gives. It grows. And when Annie looked in the mirror, she no longer saw a woman who needed to shrink to feel secure. She saw someone strong enough to circulate her blessings. She still saved, but now she moved her money with meaning. A new kind of security. Annie never became a millionaire, but she became free. Not because she saved harder, but because she let her money move with her values. She built a life that didn't rely on fear, but on flow. A life where money wasn't her master or her identity, just a tool she carried with grace. It's not about saving more. It's about trusting yourself to use what you save wisely, gently, on purpose. Because money doesn't create peace, but how you move it can. Let me leave you with this. Saving money is the first step, but learning to move it wisely, that's what builds a life you don't need to retire from. If this spoke to you, maybe send it to someone you love, someone who's always been careful, someone who deserves to be free. I make videos like this every day. Quiet stories, honest ones, just like yours.